My dear, observe the woman who has found herself again. She walks with a lightness that isn't an absence of weight, but the strength to carry her own crown. Her transformation isn't in new clothes or a busy social calendar. It's in the serene glow of her eyes, the calm in her answers, and the peaceful energy that surrounds her. She no longer plays the waiting game. This woman you see is living proof of queen mode activated, a state of mind where external validation becomes a distant noise and inner peace the main melody. She understood that her happiness could not be a consequence of someone else's actions. The real, tangible change began when she stopped looking at her phone and started looking within herself. Many might think she changed to provoke him, to make him miss her. But the truth is deeper and far more powerful. Her transformation is an act of self-preservation and love. She is no longer in the audience of his life, waiting for a nod. She has stepped onto the stage of her own existence, becoming the protagonist, the director, and the screenwriter of her story. The result is a magnetic presence which attracts respect without demanding it. People feel her integrity, her self-sufficiency. It is not arrogance, but the tranquility of someone who knows her own worth and no longer accepts emotional crumbs. She has become the energy she once desperately sought in someone else. Her change is authentic because it was not made for him, but in spite of him. But this serenity was not born from nothing, my child. It was forged in the silence of a painful absence, an echo that, in the not-so-distant past, almost consumed her completely. Before being queen of herself, she was a prisoner of a hope that hurt her with each new day, each unanswered message, each empty promise that echoed in her heart. Before this calm, there was a whirlwind. Remember the days when her heart sank every time the phone vibrated, and it wasn't him. The anguish of analyzing every word, every silence, searching for a hidden meaning that would justify the indifference. That was her reality, a state of constant alert, living on the emotional periphery of someone who kept her close, but never inside his life. The initial situation was brutally honest. She felt small, insufficient, questioning everything about herself. His neglect, the hot and cold treatment, the ghosting, all of it became a distorted mirror in which she saw only her own flaws. The pain was not just for his absence, but for the feeling of being discarded, of not having been good enough to be loved and respected. She lived for a mirage, feeding the hope that if she were more patient, more understanding, more interesting, he would finally see her. This cycle of self-annihilation was exhausting and left her emotionally drained. Every day was a lost battle against her own anxiety, an attempt to fill with thoughts about him the void he himself created with his inconsistency and his neglect. The drama needs no exaggeration, for the pain was real. It was the silent humiliation of knowing you are giving 100% of yourself to someone who barely offers you 10. It was falling asleep wondering what she did wrong and waking up with the same suffocating question. Her life force was being drained to keep a connection alive that, in truth, had been dead for a long time. At the deepest point of her pain, when his silence was all she heard, another voice began to whisper. A voice she had almost forgotten, a guidance that came from a higher, wiser place. It was an angelic call from within her, begging to be heard amidst the noise of her affliction and her longing. The catalyst for change was not a spectacular external event. It wasn't a new person who arrived or a successful revenge. It was a moment of profound clarity, an angelic whisper in her soul that said, "Enough." It was the realization that love should not hurt that way, The real turning point happened the moment she decided that her love for herself was more important. That decision was the true starting point. She chose to stop waiting for a message that might never come and start writing her own story. The catalyst was the conscious choice to withdraw her focus from him and place it on her own healing. It was an act of faith in herself, a bet that on the other side of the pain of emotional withdrawal, a stronger, more whole version of herself existed. The activation of Queen Mode is, in its essence, an act of spiritual rebellion. It is rebelling against the belief that your happiness depends on the approval or presence of another person. It was when she understood that by begging for attention, she was handing over her power, her crown, to someone who didn't know what to do with it. The decision was to take it back, even if her hands were shaking. She stopped seeking external answers and started asking herself the right questions. What do I need right now? What would make me feel good today, without depending on anyone? This change in perspective was the seed of transformation. The real event that generated the change was internal, a silent promise made to her own heart that she would never again abandon it in exchange for crumbs of affection. Activating Queen Mode, therefore, was not a magic trick, but the first and most courageous step of a lonely and, at times, frightening journey. It was the decision to pick up the broken pieces of her heart, not to try to fix the past, but to use them as raw material to build a throne, a seat of power from which she would never have to stand for anyone. The process of rising again was anything but glamorous. It involved days of crying, of anger, and a loneliness that felt overwhelming. The hard work was resisting the temptation to look at his social media, deleting the number, and fighting the urge to call in the middle of the night. Every no said to the old dependency was a yes to her new life, one more brick in the construction of her kingdom. She rediscovered passions she had abandoned, reconnected with friendships she had neglected in her obsession. She started taking long walks, not to escape, but to find herself. The process was realistic, slow, with relapses, but always with the determination to move forward. Healing was not a straight line, but an upward spiral, where with each turn she felt a little stronger, a little more herself. It was necessary to establish firm boundaries, first with herself and then with the world. Learning to say no became her superpower. The change required discipline and infinite patience with her own frailties. If you identify with this journey and feel you need a guide, a daily word of comfort, subscribe to the channel. Together, we are stronger on this path of healing and transformation. Time was a crucial ally. She understood that you don't heal overnight. She allowed herself to feel the pain without letting it define her. Every tear watered the garden that was blooming inside her. The hard work was replacing the obsessive thoughts about him with thoughts of affection and care for herself. It was a process of mental and spiritual reprogramming, forging her crown in the fire of her own resilience. Each step, no matter how small, was not building a prison of revenge, but rather the foundations of an inner kingdom, a sacred place where her peace would be the greatest and most well-guarded treasure. She was learning that the safest palace is not made of walls, but of self-love, and that true royalty comes from wisely governing your own emotional world. The result of this journey is a lasting transformation, a state of peace that does not depend on external circumstances. She built a kingdom within herself. His absence, which was once a black hole that sucked all her joy, is now just an empty space she has filled with self-knowledge, hobbies, friendships, and above all, self-love. She has become emotionally self-sufficient. This new stability is queen mode in its fullness. It is the certainty that no matter what happens, she will be okay. Her happiness is no longer a sandcastle by the sea, vulnerable to the tide of someone else's mood. It is a fortress built on the solid rock of her non-negotiable worth. She no longer needs him to miss her to feel valuable. The natural consequence of this change is magnetic. The energy of desperation has been replaced by an aura of fulfillment, and that is incredibly attractive. He may even notice the change. He may feel the void she left, but the point is that this has ceased to be important. Her focus is no longer his reaction, but the maintenance of her own inner peace, which has become her most precious asset. The sustainable result is this: she would not go back to being who she was even if he begged. The old version of her, who accepted less than she deserved, simply no longer exists. The transformation is so profound that it has become part of her identity. She is no longer acting like a queen. She simply is one. Her posture, her choices, and her serenity are proof of this permanent state. This transformation, my dear, reveals the greatest of all angelic truths. The real secret to making him miss you is not a manipulation trick or a psychological game. It is a deep and radical lesson in self-love, a journey back home to your own heart. And that is a lesson you too can learn and apply in your life. The applicable lesson, my angel, is that queen mode is not about him. It is about you. The psychological and angelic secret to making him miss you is to stop caring whether he does or not. It is a divine paradox. The moment his absence no longer affects you, your presence becomes magnetic to him and, more importantly, optional for you. Activating your queen mode is an invitation to an inner journey. Start small. Dedicate 30 minutes of your day to something that nurtures you with no connection to him. Read a book. Listen to a song that lifts you up. Walk in nature. With each small act of self-love, you remove a brick from the prison of waiting and build a step to your throne of self-worth. The genuine insight here is the transfer of power. As long as you focus on him, he has the power. When you focus on yourself, you reclaim every spark of power that was taken from you. Your energy is sacred. Stop giving it to those who do not honor it. Direct this life force to heal your wounds, to build your dreams, and to become the woman you were born to be. The void he will feel will not be of a woman who chased him, but of the light she radiated and which he took for granted. He will miss her energy, which is now being used to illuminate her own path. But at that point, his longing for her will be just a distant echo in her prosperous and peaceful inner kingdom, no longer a necessity for her happiness. If this message has touched your heart and you wish to continue receiving words of strength and angelic guidance, share this video with a friend who needs to hear it and leave a comment saying, "I activate my queen mode today." Remember, my dear, the crown has always been on your head. You just need to stand up straight so it doesn't fall. You are stronger than you imagine.